And this is really more than a full-time job for me. So, but I love it. It's still helping people. I became a pharmacist to help people. In the Senate role, I could help people, and this is just helping people on a larger scale.
Hey everyone, welcome back into another special edition here at the Core. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, and this series is sponsored by TK Business Magazine. I'm super excited to continue the conversations with local leaders across Kansas, where we get to have the opportunity to sit down with someone pretty interesting that you are familiar with, and I'm super excited to bring our Kansas Insurance Commissioner, Vicki Schmidt, here to our show today. Vicki, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for inviting me here. This is very exciting.
Can I just say I'm a really just blushing right now in this space because I've spoken with you before, and to have this opportunity to sit down and have, I call it girl time. We're going to spend this time and have a little girl time because you are community facing. People are familiar with seeing you across the state, speaking with you about different topics and things. But today I want to get to know Vicki and who you are. So if you can just start with, what's something that people may not know about you?
Oh, I think I'm a pretty open book. I think I overshare, and people know about everything about me.
Yeah.
Maybe the fact that can't leave the bedroom without the bed being made in the morning.
That's a good one. I'm like that too. I can't, because then your day is off, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right. It's not ready to go.
Yes. And so I appreciate that feedback, because I used to think that I was like a clean freak, but it's like, no, it's really a part of being really successful in your day to make sure you start with the bed all put together. So I appreciate that. Okay, share something in your childhood that's a favorite memory.
You know, I would think my most favorite memory is I started dating my husband when I was 15 years old, and never dated anybody after that. And we went to college together. We got married when I was 18. He was 19. We have our 50th anniversary coming up in just a few weeks here,
Yes.
and that seems to make me feel like I should be so old. I remember when my parents celebrated their 50th, but we were pretty young at the time, and I was so fortunate that we grew up together, and we've made a great life for ourselves, and one that I am so blessed to have. And so when I was in 5th grade, I actually rode my bicycle through his baseball game. I lived in a cul-de-sac, and it was all boys around my neighborhood except for my sister and I, and so we just used to torment them and ride our bicycles through there. So
wow, that's beautiful.
That's a childhood memory from a long time ago.
Yeah, and being married to the guy that you were in high school with. Wow, honey. So you have a lot of relationship and marriage advice that you can give us. So first question, I'm sure many people are wondering, how did you stay together that long? How do you do it?
It takes two. And I think both of us have to give 110% at times. No, I am very serious when I say this. I am so fortunate because I know a lot of people wouldn't put up with me. He's pretty much a saint. And, but we have grown together. We had similar backgrounds, and he lived a block and a half away from me. And so, it's just the way it happened. And I do feel very blessed, and I'm really glad that I chose the person I did to marry. I do it all over again, time and time again.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure he appreciates that comment as well. And so, Vicki, many people know you're a lifelong Kansan, you are a pharmacist and a dedicated public servant. And so talk to us about being the leading face of the state. You are the Kansas Insurance Commissioner. Did you ever see yourself in this role?
Never. That was never a dream of mine. I took kind of a change, I guess, in my career path. I have been a pharmacist for a lot of years, and went to the University of Kansas and graduated from there, and have worked many, many years in the pharmacy world in different capacities. When I was in the mid-1990s, Governor Graves appointed me to the Board of Pharmacy, and he it was a great opportunity for me, and I am very thankful to him for doing that. What happened in that time was that we had to go before the legislature to testify on certain bills, and since I was the one in Topeka, I got the short straw to go before the legislature. So I went to the legislature and presented a bill that we were working on and we needed to have happen. And I was pretty nervous about that. I was had never done that, never presented before the legislature.
Wow.
And it was after lunch. That's a bad sign. It was after lunch. And so I'm about halfway through and I look up and two of the legislators are sleeping. They have nodded off.
Oh, wow.
And I was so mad about that.
Yeah.
I thought I have spent all this time. This is really important to us. And,
Right.
you know, if you can't even stay awake to listen to what I have to say. So in my typical fashion, I'm pretty sure I went home and spaghetti is my comfort food. And my husband knows if he hits the back door and the spaghetti is cooking, that there's probably
It's been an
something
off
that's
day.
gone really wrong.
Oh, geez.
And he said, "What happened? How'd it go?" And I said, I said, they fell asleep and, you know, that's just ridiculous. And if I ever have the opportunity to run for office, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And he said, like most spouses probably, okay, fine. Yeah. What's for dinner? And, you know, and we proceeded on. Well, then there was an opening in the Senate and it was an open position. The person wasn't running again. And so our youngest son was a senior in high school that summer, or just graduated and was going to go to college. And I told my husband, this is a time. I mean, he's we're going to be empty nesters. I mean, what else are we going to do? And he looked at me and said, well, you know, I know a lot of empty nesters and they don't lose their mind and run for public office. So it was a little bit of a pillow talk there. And but then, you know, after that, then the rest was history and went on to serve in the Kansas Senate 14 years. And and certainly enjoyed my time there. But then there was another open seat in the Kansas Insurance Department, and that took a lot more talk.
Yeah.
But you know, so I until becoming commissioner of insurance, I still worked as a pharmacist, and I still maintained my license. And Kansas law, I can't regulate somebody. I can't work for somebody that I regulate. So the PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, limit where I could work. And this is really more than a full-time job for me. So, but I love it. It's still helping people. I became a pharmacist to help people. In the Senate role, I could help people, and this is just helping people on a larger scale.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that feedback and that background, because many people don't get to hear, you know, that background in that space of how you got to this journey. Some people think it's easy to just walk into this role and be like, yep, I'm a senator now I'm the Kansas Insurance Commissioner, and like it's all like a piece of cake. And so I always like to share the background, kind of like the behind the scenes of what does it take to get to that space, because especially as a woman, you are constantly faced with challenges. And so the question that I have for you is, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated? And how do you show up every day confidently?
The confidently may be the key word there. I show up every day.
Yeah.
You know, I think running for public office is tough. I mean, you're really putting yourself out there. I would say that in the beginning, I had no idea how tough that was. I started knocking on doors and started talking to people, and I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories, and that's how it started. And you know, then there are the cases of the people that people not everybody always agrees with you. And I think that, you know, when I first started running, it was a different time to run for political office. And you know, we can have disagreements and still agree on 95% of the things. I think a real eye-opener for me was when I was serving in the Kansas Senate, and I got a phone call one time many years ago because it was on a corded phone. I remember it.
Yeah.
And the gentleman, I said, "This is Vicki," and he said, "I didn't vote for you, but I need your help." And that's how the conversation started. And I thought, wow, not how I would have started a conversation, but okay. And he said, and I told him, you're in luck because I don't represent just the people that voted for me. I represent this entire district.
Right.
And so what can I do to help? Yeah. And it was a situation that needed some immediate action, and I was able to do that, and I'm very proud to say it had a really nice outcome for he and his family, and that meant a lot to me. And by the time it was over, he asked me if he could put a yard sign up for me, and he continued, and I. He still has the yard signs. And so, good. I think, those are the things that keep it going. I mean, and we have so many successes in our department of helping people that have insurance issues. And I think we're the best kept secret. I don't want to be the best kept secret. So.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that, because like when people do hear insurance, they kind of get like, it's like the sneeze, the bore. They're like, yeah, I don't need that. But it's like the number one key component that we need in all the things in retirement, in life, and all the areas. In our lives, we do need insurance, and it's something that we can't overlook. And so your years of serving as a dedicated public servant, I would say putting together senator and commissioners over about 40 years. And so you've been public facing. What's a challenging, let's say, scenario that you've been faced with in your time in this position?
Well, I think, it starts with communication. And if we don't have good communication, then we don't have good conversations. And we have to get to know what the issues are. And for me, it's listening to my companies that we interface with, listening to our consumers that we interface with, listening to my employees, listening to a whole wide variety of people. What I have found is that sometimes we don't talk the same language. We're talking about the same subject, but we're not talking about the same language. Yeah. So, for instance, in January, we actually brought together people from the insurance industry. We brought people from the healthcare provider industry, and we brought legislators together to talk about some accreditation issues and to talk about some things that put people on the same page. Industry insights is what we called it. And, we took a really difficult conversation and got people in the same room. It's amazing when people just talk to each other instead of over each other or around each other, what can happen. So, I think those are that's a way that we've tried to solve some of the problems and the issues that we see in the space.
I love that. And can you even touch on what are some of the pressing issues that we should be aware of, especially in our community or even just statewide? What are some things that you think that many people, Kansans, are unaware of when it comes to insurance?
Well, I think the number one thing is, and I preach this over and over and over again, is you need to have active conversations with your insurance agent at least once a year. Because what we found out in Westmoreland and in Andover when the tornadoes hit is that we have a segment of population that were underinsured, they might have replacement coverage, but they didn't have it insured for the right amount. Mm-hmm. So if you make an addition onto your home or you change some things in your home, you need to check in and make sure that you have the coverage you think you have. And on that, not everything is always covered. Some things require a rider and an additional policy. So you need to really make sure you know what you have in that coverage space. And, I think it's heartbreaking to go out and to find that people don't have the amount of insurance that they thought they had. Mm-hmm. And, I also know that the other pressing issue is the affordability of insurance. Yes. And I don't take that lightly either. But one of my main goals is to make sure that companies have reserves to pay for claims when a disaster happens. Yeah. And, we have to make sure that those numbers are sound and verified by an actuary and make sure that happens. We live in a time when inflation is a real thing for all of us, whether you go to the grocery store or you buy insurance.
Yeah.
And so that is an issue. I don't set the rates, but I do approve the rates, and like I say, they have to meet state law, and they have to meet all of those things. But insurance availability and affordability is really important to me.
You bring up that keyword affordability, and Vicki, I'll be honest and let you know that I wasn't, really aware or really trying to get information or understanding about, let's say, healthcare costs and insurance or any of that matter. Because, when you're young, you're living your best life. You're like, I don't care about this stuff. But as I'm in this space of retirement planning and talking about it all the time, I'm very aware of the rising costs of healthcare costs and the rising, like you mentioned, affordability, and how are people going to be paying for this, especially with inflation. Can you talk about what you and your team are planning for, or the vision for healthcare and insurance in the future?
Well, I think we're always looking to make sure that we're in the right space with that, and that we look at the rates that are being charged and make sure that the rates that are being charged are appropriate. Yeah. I think in the healthcare space, it's really tough to keep up with the technology, and we all want to have the best treatment and the best for our loved ones, for ourselves. Yeah. And some of those new treatments are expensive. Some of those drug therapies some of those prescription medications are expensive. Yeah. But I don't think you can ever quit looking at the affordability and what you can do to make that better.
Yeah, and I know you and your team are working very hard on ensuring that Kansans are covered in that area, because it's difficult. And like I said, it wasn't something that was brought to my awareness until I started talking about it. And you brought up the idea of people communicating but not speaking the same language. But then when you actually sit down and talk to someone about it, you're like, oh, I do need to know about this. And so I appreciate you taking time to making it clear and just aware that it's a concern that you guys are facing and that you guys are working on. So we know that we can trust you in that area. But bringing back who you are as a person beyond the title, because I just wanted to spend a little bit more time on that, just because now it's fascinating. I'm like, ooh, I know what you're talking about, so I can have this conversation with you. But I do want to spend this time getting to know Vicki, and let's go into this personal space of you being a breast cancer survivor, and take me back to the time where you found out that information. I'm sure it was very difficult. What did you do in that moment?
Well, that's an interesting story. With apps like MyChart, you get notified almost before your doctor calls you. You get notified, and for me, that happened the Friday before Memorial Day in 2023, and I had been called back for an additional study, and then I had a biopsy after that, and the timing was, they said it would take 5 to 7 days, and so when I got a result the next day, I figured, I knew that if it was positive, there would have to be other, I thought there would have to be other testing done on it. So it's Friday, 4:00 in the afternoon, and 3-day weekend coming up, and I click on MyChart, and you have cancer. The world pretty much stops at that moment in time. I'll probably never forget where I was sitting at my desk, and never forget that I couldn't hardly breathe for a moment. But I did drive myself home. I sometimes wonder how, but I did drive myself home, and got back into that cocoon of somebody that loves me, right? And somebody that's going to help take care of me. And it didn't take long to learn. I tried not to surf the net too much because that's not really good. Right. But I laid out a treatment plan. I mean, you lay out a plan of action, and the plan was, I need to get to a doctor. I need to know what I've got exactly, and then I need to look at the recommendations they give you, and we need to go from there. Yeah. So you have that pity party, and that can last a while, but you have the pity party, and then you just go. For me, it was just, let's execute the plan. Yeah. And so I had surgery, and I had radiation, and I finished up my radiation in September. Okay. I am here to tell anyone who will listen to me, get your mammogram, because this was a screening mammogram done on a yearly basis. And it was a very small lesion, and, it was treated. And I had some scans a couple weeks ago, and I've got a clean bill of health, and I'm so blessed and thankful to the people that cared for me. Really thankful to my husband that drove me back and forth to appointments, and was kind of my compliance officer, maybe. Wouldn't let me do all the things I wanted to do when I wanted to do them. But I really want to stress that preventative medicine is so much better than if you have to have something done on an emergency basis.
Yeah.
And so get your mammogram, and I know they're not the most pleasant thing to experience, but they can save your life, because I'm pretty sure it saved mine.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because I was going to ask you, being a pharmacist, being someone that is healthy, like, did that surprise you? You talked about getting mammograms yearly. And so when you see this on your My Chart, you're like, what the heck? I
had no family history.
Yeah.
And so, it is it's a little bit of a shock, but the statistics continue to rise, and sometimes we don't take such good care of ourselves. And I know, especially during the pandemic, a lot of things weren't the same. And I really think that people need to get back on track and get those preventative things done. And, everybody will thank you for it.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and sharing wisdom and encouragement on why we need to get them yearly, monthly, whenever you schedule them. Just make sure you're getting them done, because I know it's something we try to avoid. But in there, when you were sharing your story, you made it sound like you couldn't sit down. So do you have a problem with staying still? I can relate to you. So I'm just wondering, where does that come from?
I don't know, but I know the day after surgery, I walked out of the bedroom and I told my husband, hey, I feel so good. I mean, I'm going to get dressed and you're going to drive me to work, because I knew I couldn't drive. And I said, you're going to drive me to work. And he looked at me and he said, turn around and go back in the bedroom. And these are the medication talking. This is medication talking right now. And you need to, tomorrow you're not going to feel so hot. And, he was right. And don't ever tell him that.
Yeah.
But he was right. And I think he hid the power cord to my laptop, my work laptop from me. And, it's really hard for me to step away for a while, because, I don't think the office can work without me. Right.
Oh my gosh.
And that is not true.
Yeah.
I have a terrific team there, and I am so lucky that they, we didn't miss a beat at the office, and I'm forever grateful to them for that. But, I don't know. I mean, I can't really sit down, and I wish I could tell you that I like to knit or crochet or, do something with my hands. I just don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're
I don't even know if I can do it. I just can't. So, I guess, I do like to go for walks, and, I'm not a runner. You can tell that, but just take a look. But, I'm a walker. I like to walk, and I like to get on my elliptical and pound things out on it, and do things like that. But
you thrive off of doing.
I do.
Yes.
I do. I
you don't have to apologize for that. I'm the same way.
Kind of, but sometimes I wish that I could just dial it back a little bit at times. But and I think on when you do get away from a work environment, it probably takes me a couple of days to kind of calm myself down and to know that everything's okay. But then I'll occasionally sneak a phone and, call back to work and see how things are going. And I know they will call me if they need me, but, they don't.
Really? Well, I love that. I love that you don't have to apologize for it. But I do understand, your self-care is important. So you have to, take a few days, and then we can get back to work. But I'm curious, being a leader in your family and the community, tell me about, let's call it a powerhouse moment. I don't know if you're familiar with, but nowadays people keep saying this term powerhouse, which essentially means that you are doing something monumental in your community, in your business. And for you, what would you say is your powerhouse moment that you've done in your years of serving as our commissioner?
Well, I think it's kind of, for me, it would depend on which phase of my life I was in. When I was a senator, I was really proud to have sponsor some pieces of legislation. One was the Clean Indoor Air Act, and I think it's so old now that people can't remember individuals smoking in a restaurant or in the grocery store or places like that. And that was a really big deal for Kansas to pass. We did the autism coverage for children.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about that. Early treatment, and you change the life of those children forever, and their families and their parents. And so the autism coverage was really important. And then, something that has affected me in the last year that I never thought I would be would consume those services was I helped provide the seed money for the KU Cancer Center when they were looking at trying to get their NCI designation, and that was a budgetary amount, and that was a pretty big deal for Kansas to do. And now they're a comprehensive cancer center in addition to being an NCI cancer center. On the insurance side of things, we've cut fees by over $50 million to people doing business in the insurance and the securities space. That's a lot of money for our state to have given back to those agents. We've recovered over $16 million just last year in our consumer assistance division, and $36 million since I took office. And that money went back into Kansas consumers' pockets, and also changed outcomes for health reasons, and if you're in a car crash, getting your car taken care of, or your roof damage, and things like that. So I think all of those things have been it's been a succession of events, and I've been really I've been lucky to be where I've been at the time, and to be able to do some of those good things. I think sometimes in life what you do today, you don't really see the results for until later, several years after. But you just have to keep doing good work, and you have to keep doing the things that you love and the things that are going to make a difference to somebody. And I want to do that.
Are you ready to dive into the vibrant world of business in Topeka? Well, look no further than TK Business Magazine. You'll be able to discover the stories of innovative leaders, passionate entrepreneurs, and learn the real journey behind their success. TK Business Magazine is where inspiration meets reality. You can grab a copy today by heading to www.tkmagazine.com. I appreciate you, first of all, listing all these successful accomplishments that you have accomplished, because I think that people don't see enough the leader behind all the work. And I know it takes a team. I know you're doing this with a team, but I think it's important to be reminded that families in Kansas are safe and more secured because of the work that you guys are doing in all aspects. And so I appreciate that. And so I want to go into your legacy and what that looks like. I mean, you listed off so much. I'm like, dang, this is a powerhouse moment. This is it. Are you done? Or do you have more?
Oh, I think everybody has more. I think, I like the Irma Bombeck quote that, when I die, I'm going to come skidding into the grave. I as long as I'm healthy and able to do things, I think there's so much to do, and we should all be concerned about the community we live in and the state we live in, and I really look forward to continuing whatever that looks like for me in the future.
I love that. Okay, as we are coming to a close on our show today, I want to know something super fun and super powerful, and I want to know, what is your superpower?
Oh, my superpower. I think my superpower is just asking questions. And I think that my staff, and I know my husband would tell you, that I ask a lot of questions. I think that when you ask a question, it leads into, and sometimes it leads into more questions, but it leads into conversations also. A couple of things about that. When I was a young pharmacist, and I probably was still in school at the time, and I remember being told stories of people that when a customer comes in and when a patient comes in for their medication and, they're kind of grumpy and you don't know what's happened to them, right? Yeah. They may have gotten a bad diagnosis. They haven't heard from their kids for a while. They had a fight with their spouse or a sibling or whatever. I mean, you never know what's going on. Mm-hmm. But, my goal was to impart my knowledge to them about drug interactions and how to take it and make sure that they were taking it right, because I'm kind of the last stop before they go home. And, what I found was like just asking a simple question like, how are you doing today? How's your day going? And you could find out all kinds of things and sometimes help people with that. So that's kind of a smaller way that, I think that's what started me in asking questions. I have a grandson who, I have 4 grandchildren that I love, but I have a grandson that is very inquisitive and he asks a lot of questions. And our son, his dad said, drive him to school, and I just can't take all the questions in the morning. I want to enjoy the drive. It's a beautiful drive. I want to enjoy the drive. Yeah. So he said, okay, you can have 2 questions per ride. And I think, oh, that is my child. And one day he said, so do I still only get 2 questions? He goes, you're down to 1. So, so maybe I passed that on to at least one of my grandchildren. But I do think being inquisitive about things is important. And, it's how, I guess for me, it's how I learn. So I don't know whether it's a superpower. It might be an annoying power to some, but
I've heard that before as well. Like people are like, why are you so nosy? I'm like, I'm not nosy. I'm curious.
Right. I want to learn.
Curious. Yeah. And I think that's the best way, like you said, to like be personal, get to know someone, is you ask them so many different questions. And I always like warn people, especially like whether it's an interview or I'm meeting someone for the first time, I'm like, hey, disclaimer, I ask a tons of questions. It's just because I'm naturally curious. I'm not trying to get into your business or anything like that. But I love that trait because I have that same trait, that superpower too, asking a lot of questions. But Vicki, if you could conclude on this, if you can speak to any young ladies out there that are interested in getting into public office or being a public servant like you, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think there's a whole bunch of advice to give them, but I would start with you need to, everyone does community service in some way. I think the majority of people do community service in some way. But running for public office is really putting yourself out there. And, I think that historically, most women run for public office because somebody asks them. If they don't run unless somebody asks them. I don't know why we think we need to be asked, but apparently we do. And I would say, listen to the people around you, because I think that sometimes people around you see traits in you that you don't see in yourself. Right. And when they tell you that you might have a knack at this or you'd be good at that, listen to them, because I think sometimes they see things that we don't see in ourselves, and you can take that and run with it. I just Girl State was some of our Girl State sponsored by the American Auxiliary Legion was just in Lawrence, and I got to speak to those women, and I want to tell you that after that and a few other interactions that I've had with young people in our state, I'm so excited for what the future brings for our state.
Yes. Well, Vicki, thank you so much for your time. That concludes our episode for At the Core series. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed our time today. Our girl talk today was fantastic.
Me too. You are just a jewel. So keep doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning into At the Core series right here with Danielle J. Martin. We're going to continue our conversation with local leaders here across Kansas. If you have someone that you're interested in, let us know. Shoot us a message and we will get them here on the show. In the meantime, have a great day.